one. Yes. And we are live. Welcome back to Terry Messenger's Genius Zone. And you all know that this is the place and the space where magic happens. So we love to bring something every single week that's delicious and juicy for your life. So you'll be able to take something away from here, just from tuning in and listening, that can be life changing. So with no further ado, I have a beautiful lady. Now, this lady is launching something really fun. She happens to be a hypnotherapist and an NLP, so she is one of my kind, and she believes in equipping people so that they can take positive action and have the tools to do it themselves. But she also believes in really letting your hair down, creating a space so you can just come in and really learn even when you're having fun and spending a Friday night at Rosie's. So with no further ado, I introduce you the gorgeous Rosie Nelson. Hi, Rosie.
Hello, hi.
And tell us, where are you?
I'm in England. I'm in Devon in England.
Beautiful. I love the picture. I love that picture behind you.
Thank you.
It's divine, a divine art. So does it have a meaning? Like, I know a lot of our listeners can't see it, but there's this beautiful blue sky and there's these trees and there's a little bit of water by the looks of it. Does it have any special representation?
Well, it's a bit of a funny story, that one. So this painting was given to me in with a few other things that I bought because somebody didn't want it. And it was very brown. It was very, very, very brown and grey and a bit dull. And one day I was sat looking at it and I thought, it's so boring, I can't look at it anymore. So I got out some paints, and I don't paint. I'm not an artist. I'm very creative, but I'm not an artist. I got out some old paints that I had from childminding, which I didn't use because they were oils, and you don't give children oil paint. Well, not without some severe supervision and waterproof things down. Anyway, I got out these paints, and I thought, I'm going to change it. And I set to changing it. It's not finished. This side over here is finished. No, this side is finished. This side isn't. So it's a work in progress. But I literally just took a paintbrush and some paint to it and livened it up. And people since have said, I love that painting. Where did you get it? And I said, well, I just did it myself, but it's not finished yet. It's a little bit like me. It's a work in progress. It's not quite finished. It used to be very dull and very staid and very safe. It used to be very safe. And now it's vibrant and colourful and on its way to being super fantastic.
Wow, that's so good. I love that. And it's interesting that I can always really tune into some familiar story, because I had a painting as well where I took to it and I used those same colors. And yes, it's actually away in the shed somewhere at the moment. But there was all these spiritual connotations where you could see a staircase in the sky, and you could almost see spirit formed angels. And I'm even seeing things in behind you, like shadows and a tower, all of that there, which is amazing. So, well done. So you're a hypnotherapist and an NLP practitioner, and you do breath work and you do all of those things. What made you decide that you wanted to suddenly do something different, like Rosie's, Friday night at Rosie's? Tell me about Friday night at Rosie's.
So Friday night at Rosie's was born through a wonderful course that I went on with somebody called Laurie Hammond. She's fantastic, and she teaches people how to create their own courses, their own complete sort of 10-week courses and stuff. She's fantastic. So she enables people to do that. She shows you exactly how to do it from start to finish in a very simplistic way. It's wonderful. Thoroughly recommend it. Now, when I was on that course, I decided that I was struggling with a few things, as people do. When you're on a new course and you're learning new things, there's always an aspect that you sort of think, oh, I just don't know how to do this. I'm going to give up, you know. And I sort of reached that point. And so I reached out to everybody on the course, and they were all absolutely amazing people. And I just reached out to them and said, you know, I'd really like to do a Zoom call, a group Zoom call. Just to get us all together and to chat and to so that we can iron out anything that we're worried about and all that kind of stuff. So I set this Zoom call up, and the first week it sort of started out at about 8 people, I think, and it was great. I just did a little hypnotherapy thing at the beginning, guided meditation hypnotherapy session at the beginning, and then we all chatted, and then we went into breakout rooms, and we sort of talked about the course and how amazing it was, and our fears over things, because that's so much. Basically, that's pretty much what it boils down to, isn't it? We all have these fears inside over certain things. Yeah, so we just had a jolly good chat about that, and then everybody said to me, it was fantastic, can you do another one? So I sort of said, yes, yeah, by all means. I loved it, and I did love it. I felt different when I was doing it. I felt so alive, and I used to do a lot of amateur dramatics when I was a child. And it sort of brought that side of me out, the creative, wonderful side. And I just loved it. So I thought, well, I'll do another one. So I did another one the following week. And suddenly I had so many people signed up. I thought, crikey, this is yeah, quite overwhelming, actually. So I went on, and I didn't really feel the same fear that I feel with a lot of other things that I did. I just really enjoyed it. I felt really relaxed, and I just really, really enjoyed it. And from that, I sort of thought, okay, what can I do with this? This is something that I love doing. What can I do with this? Where can I take it? And I thought about the healer world, the hypnotherapy world. And I thought, you know what? We go from course to course. We just move from course to course to course. And what do we gain from that? Well, we gain this wonderful community when we're doing these courses. You meet all these fantastic people, and you have this amazing social life, and you're all in it together. But then the course ends, you know, and you drift, you stay in touch with some people, you lose touch with others, and you drift apart. And I thought, I want to create a community that lasts forever for people. But I also want them to get that sense of learning. We're all addicted to learning, I think, us hypnotherapists and healers. We really want to learn constantly, and improve, you know, and learn the next thing, the next thing that we can help people with. And I thought, I want everybody to learn every week, but I don't want people to feel like this is another course, just another, you know, another course that they're going on, another learning tool. I want people to learn without really realizing or knowing that they're learning. How can I do this? And I thought, I know, I can start a chat show. This is what people need. They need a night out. Us hypnotherapists and healers, we slog all week on our own. You know, yeah, we talk to friends about things, but who do you talk to about if you've got a really sort of tough case, if you've got a difficult client and you think, how do I deal with this? Or, you know, if you're feeling stressed out by something a client's told you, you know, you need that connection with people who are in a similar job. I think. And that's why we all flock to each other in these courses. And I want to create that permanent community where people can learn in a really fun way, let their hair down, just be themselves without actually doing another course, you know. So yeah, Friday Nights at Rosie's was born.
Wow. So do you think a lot of it came as an evolution, like because it kind of evolved, it sounds like it birthed itself?
It was a really natural thing for me. I didn't realize how much I enjoyed hosting something. I didn't realize how much I enjoyed providing a safe environment for people where they can just have fun and just let their hair down and not have to perform or be giving, because that's what we do as healers and hypnotherapists. We just give, and we don't really do anything for ourselves. If we do, it tends to be separate from that. And I just wanted to provide, I wanted to give back. I want to give back. That's what I want to do. I want to give back to a community that just serves and gives.
It also sounds very much like not only are you giving back, but you're doing this because it's kind of like almost like a natural ease and flow. And it's like you understand that there seems to be this push, you know, with the grind and the hustle of what everybody's constantly wanting to do and trying to do online. And I think one of the big problems is that there are so many people wanting to say, hello, choose me over here, because we are in a very, very crowded space online, you know, where there are suddenly so many coaches. Like, you're in England, right? I'm in Perth, Western Australia. When I first became a hypnotherapist back in, well, I was in 2006 when I became a trainer of neuro-linguistic programming. It actually took me a few years. So I actually developed my diploma in hypnosis in 2011 and 12. And it was no problem because, number one, it was strange to be a hypnotherapist in Perth. Like, there were no hypnotherapists. And then if people thought about it, they'd go, oh, well, you know, they expected to see an old lady with short grey hair and big glasses, you know, and a long dress. And, you know, I just didn't fit any of the usual type of personal what people expected. So, you know, being in that space of being a hypnotherapist or an NLP trainer, you know, it was pretty easy, actually. It was very easy compared to when coming online, because once you came online, all of a sudden you've got a sea of coaches coming out of the woodworks. So the question is, how do I stand out? And I'm wondering, just listening to you, because I know that a lot of people that do follow my show are other coaches, healers, and leaders anyway, or people that are, you know, really doing an online business, and people that love this kind of work that we do, such as NLP and hypnosis. So the question is, do you think that one of the big success elements for you was in your authenticity, like suddenly finding your place in your happy space? And it's sort of like growing out of a natural kind of ease and flow, rather than that, oh, I've got to try and get myself out there. And then when you kind of just went, oh, yeah, okay, I'm going to do this. And then suddenly you get this influx. Because there's going to be a lot of other people that are listening and going, well, what was the magic? So I'm just going to say something myself right here, and that is that just because Rosie's doing a Friday night at Rosie's, that may not be the perfect thing for you, right? The whole thing is to be you. So I'm wondering whether, like, even you mentioned about the creative part of you and what you did, you know, like going back in your history, and can you see how all of that's kind of come together and really exudes a bit of your genius, you know, your genius zone?
Absolutely. It really is about, people often say, just go with the flow, just go with the flow. And then you get other people who say, oh, if you want something, you've really got to fight for it. You've got to fight and fight and fight. And all of the multimillionaires, you know, they've all become bankrupt at some point. And yes, I completely agree with all that. I think you do have to go with the flow. And yes, to a degree, you have to fight. But I think it's all about knowing yourself and knowing what is natural for you, because this to me was so natural, and I'd never felt before that anything was quite so natural. It just all happened. It just happened. And I think, yes, you can't sit there and let things plop into your lap, because they often won't. But
no, that's right.
I think if you're in tune with yourself, and reaching that point of being in tune with yourself can be really hard. This has taken a lot of things have led to this point. This hasn't been a case of me just tripping through life, skipping through the fields, you know, skipping through daisies and going, oh, look, here we are. This is all just happening around me. A lot of things. Exactly. A lot of things have led to this point. And so I've had a lot of trauma, as have so many people. This whole COVID thing, this whole period, the last 4 years, I think, have been very, very difficult for a lot of people. I speak to very few people who've had it easy over the last 4 years, me included. It's been one I've had two major traumas that have changed my life beyond anything. And they were what gave me that big boot up the backside that I really needed to recognize my value. I never recognized my value, and a lot of us don't. I think so many of our fears come from childhood beliefs and stuff, which are very hard to get rid of. Even though a lot of us are therapists and hypnotherapists and healers, it doesn't mean that we're fully there. You don't. Yeah, right. You don't train to do this stuff and then go, I'm perfect now, I'm fine. Often you train to do this stuff, and that's the beginning of your journey, and you train, and after 5 years of doing the job, you have sudden changes and realizations, and it's an ever learning thing, isn't it? And for me, I trained to become a hypnotherapist, and I thought life was pretty good, actually. It was all right. And then I had a huge trauma, which partway through my training, nothing related to the training, I had a huge trauma happen, and that was a big wake-up call. And I realized that I thought I'd done a lot of work on myself, and suddenly I realized that actually this was the beginning of all the work on myself. I hadn't really done any work on myself. I had, but I had a long way to go. So it was
when you had that trauma, like obviously Terry Messenger's genius zone, that's what I believe people's zone of genius comes from, that traumatic moment in time that actually catapults a person forward. And really, it's almost like a wake-up call where you're kind of like, okay, and you're kind of forced to look at life. So what do you think? What was the perspective? Like, I'm not sure what you're prepared to share around your trauma, but, when you look at it from the point of the emotion that it created and where it took you and what happened around that, I'm really curious to know how it woke you up. What was the wake up? What were the learnings around that? I'd love to hear from you more about that.
I'm very open about everything, really, because I believe that being open allows other people to connect with you. I think it allows other people to be open as well. Oftentimes people are so closed about traumas that they've had in their lives because they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, they're all kinds of things. So I initially was very, very shocked, actually, and then I went into the shame and the embarrassment, and then suddenly I thought, a few weeks after the trauma, I thought, no, I'm not doing this shame, I'm not doing this embarrassment. Absolutely not. I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to put myself out there. And yes, people will judge me, and people will make judgments. People will assume things.
When you say, can I just ask you something? When you say you're going to put yourself out there and people will judge you, what would they be judging you for?
Okay, so I'll come to that, because I'll tell you what happened. But yes, I knew that I'd be judged, and I thought, no, I'm actually going to speak out. What happened was I found out that I was living with a child sex offender. I discovered a whole stash of some very severe child pornography in my home, which belonged to my partner at the time, and we'd been living together for 4 years. It was a huge shock. It led to all kinds of feelings and fears, and I'm sure you can begin to imagine what I went through in that within the first few hours, actually. I called the police immediately, and they turned up, and then my life was just turned upside down. In a matter of an hour, my life was over, really. What was my life was finished. I had a business with him. I didn't have any children with him, thank goodness, but I did have a son. And so, my first immediate thing was to have to call my son down and say, have you had anything happen to you? Luckily, we were very close, and he never really had very much to do with my ex-partner. They never really got left alone. He was slightly older, my son was. But yeah, I mean, you know, cut a long story short, you can imagine what it was like. The police turned up, they turned the whole house upside down. The ex was arrested, and that was it for me. I never wanted to have anything more to do with him.
Can you when you, because you're obviously a very, very clever lady, and you're very empowered too, so you understand about hypnotherapy, you understand about human, the way humans are, and you no doubt would have consulted in your life, in your time, you know, people that had been subjected to all sorts of things. I know if you've been in my position, it can be anything from people that have been subjected to rape and molestation, right through to, I had a woman where we did a course, and we really wanted to get everybody to move into that role of forgiveness, because by holding on to, you know, bitter feelings about people that hurt us or deceived us or left their mark on our lives, the only person we're really hurting is ourselves. And I said to this woman one day, I said, you know, what would be the point of you holding on to something that somebody else did to you so they retain that power over you? And you know what she said to me?
Go on.
She said, the reason is because that person murdered my husband. So, I mean, you hear these things. So how do you let go of, you know, something like that? And even in my own humanity, I could understand that. And you know, no matter what, you know, so you probably understand some of the NLP presuppositions, and I know some people won't want to hear this, but there is one specific NLP presupposition that says everybody, not a generalization, everybody, no matter what, is always coming from the highest intention. Could you ever, or did you ever find yourself being like that person who does equip people, and you obviously understand about human behavior, where you stood back for a moment and wondered what was the suffering that was inside your partner, someone you chose, that would be so derelict in nature? Was that ever something that you know that you raised with yourself about him, and what caused him to be so derelict?
Yeah, of course. I mean, crikey, when you're trying to justify what somebody's done, you know, you go through all sorts in your head. I went through the whole grieving process, actually, and that was quite interesting, because I didn't realise that it was the grieving process. Even though I knew all that I knew, I didn't really realise, I didn't recognise it as such because of the trauma. And the trauma brain stopped me from realising quite a lot at the time.
Can I ask on the trauma, can I just ask on that, what do you feel was the biggest trauma about that? Was it giving someone your trust in your life and then finding out something so depraving? Like, what was it that traumatized you the most out of that, do you think?
That's a good question. It's one that I can't answer directly. The trauma was many-sided. It was like a diamond. You know, the trauma had so many different sides. There was so many different sides to it. There was my son. There was, there was the whole trust thing. There was, I mean, crikey, I felt, and what I felt immediately changed. It was really interesting, because the immediate feelings, and it's like the grieving process. You go through this process of all these different feelings, don't you? And that was what happened to me. Initially, I was just shocked, and I myself felt revolting. If I could have removed my skin within the first few days and bleached myself, I would have.
Wow.
Felt
so it made
utterly.
you feel dirty, even though you were any part of that you didn't know, but you felt dirty. Do you think it was because you'd did you feel like he betrayed you? Was it a betrayal of your trust? Was it a disgust and disappointment of being in love with someone that you just that had
It was
gone?
many things. Yeah, it was that. It was exactly that. It was the whole thing about how could I have ever loved someone that revolting? But it was many things. It was to do with the fact that I'd let him touch me. That was a lot of it. I'd let this, as far as I was concerned at the time, I'd let this this person, this thing, touch me. Now I feel very differently about that. Things change with time, and once the trauma dies down and you can see you can see that person as a human, as I do now, and I see that person in turn, he wasn't born that way. He wasn't. He was born a baby. He became a toddler, and it was through damage to him and what was done to him that turned him into the person that did what he did. And what he did was what he did. It wasn't who he was. I wouldn't have been in love with him. So I've had many thought processes, but initially the initial thing was of shock and of shame. And I actually started a charity a while afterwards to help people in my situation, because there wasn't anybody who was exclusively dealing with people who'd found themselves in the same situation as me. And believe me when I say, I was shocked to find out at the time that they were arresting about 450 people who were viewing child pornography a month. 450 people a month. So there were 450 people out there, at least 450, not to mention the girlfriends, the wives, the mothers, the boyfriends, the lovers, the brothers, the sisters, the work colleagues of all these people who found out that this person that they trusted had been viewing child pornography.
And was he really such a least suspect that nobody would have even thought that he was a pedophile? No?
The funny thing is, people have said to me, didn't you have any idea? And I sort of think, well, if I had any idea, if I'd have had any suspicion in the slightest, I wouldn't have stayed with him. My God, I had a son, and I wouldn't have wanted to be with someone like that. But, so no, of course I didn't. But the other thing is, what people don't understand is that so much shame comes with this for the people. How do you think these paedophile rings build up? They don't make themselves known. They are clever people. They have lies that they have to cover. And they learn how to do this from a very, very early point in their addiction. They're not stupid. They are clever people. And that is how these paedophile rings remain undiscovered. And that is how so many people get away with this for so many years. Because, I can name all of the celebrities that have been found out, and people will go, well, I mean, we all knew, really. I mean, look, but if you all knew, then why was nobody doing something? No, people actually don't know. People don't know.
I'm going to commend you for this, because do you know how many people, and you've probably heard this story before too as a hypnotherapist, will come in and say that they were molested by a stepfather or a brother or an uncle or an auntie or whoever it was, but the partner did not want to know about it.
Yeah.
And refused and turn a blind eye. So I have to say, you can stand up and really be counted for being so powerful that you actually said no. You drew a line in the sand. You saw the evidence. You didn't try and cover it up. Love didn't cause you to, stay stuck inside that.
Yeah.
And as a result, I'd love to know, like, obviously, you started a charity about this, and this is what genius zones are made of. So do you feel called to actually be reaching out to people, seeing as you're very equipped to help people. That, I mean, not only want to visit, you know, Friday night at Rosie's to let their hair down, have a good time, and just, you know, be able to have fun and learn while they're actually having fun at the same time. Do you feel called that this is a specific niche that you can help people with suspected daughters or sons, brothers, uncles?
Yeah, it's something that I've been doing for the last 2 years. So so the charity's been running for a year, and before that I was helping people who would come to me. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of people in the last year. I've seen a lot of people, and it's been my main focus. It's time now for me to move on from that. It's a funny old thing, isn't it? I think if I stay doing that as my niche, then I'm tied to it. And it's time now for me to let go. And I really realize that it's time to move on. But, I have so many different therapists that were involved in my charity that are really equipped to deal with people if they do need help. So if you do need help, if this is something that you've been affected by, please feel free to get in touch with me, because I can put you in touch with someone that can help you. And they really can. And it's nothing. It's such a hard thing. So many people don't want to discuss it. It's such a taboo subject. And this is why I spoke out, because this is not something people talk about. You don't talk about pedophiles. You don't talk about the fact that you went out with one. You certainly don't mention that ever. But I do, because I'm not ashamed. I did nothing. I did nothing wrong. I did everything right. I phoned the police straight away. I helped them, and I faced up to having lived with a paedophile and just being completely unaware. My goodness, it was the biggest shock I've ever had in my life. The biggest shock.
As it would be. Have you forgiven him?
I don't need to forgive him. It's not it's not my place to forgive him, and B, I have nothing to forgive him for. He needs to forgive himself. I don't need to forgive him. I needed to deal with my feelings on it, and I needed to deal with my trauma, and that was for me to deal with. The rest is for him to deal with. I don't know I have no idea where he is or what's going on, and I don't have any need to. I needed to look after me. I needed to look after my son, and I needed to make sure that we were mentally okay after such a big trauma, and that was what I did. I focused on that, and I also focused. Part of my healing, I think, was creating the charity, and helping others to come to terms with the situation. I don't feel that what happened to me. I feel that what happened for me.
Yay!
It
Amen, sister.
Yeah, it pushed me and it projected me into a direction that I never thought I'd go in. It pushed me further. It pushed my limits. It pushed my boundaries. My God, it pushed everything, and it changed me. The event changed me completely. Now, the only thing that I still have such huge sadness about are the children. Those are the things that I feel really sad about. I feel sad about the children that get involved in this, that are pushed into it and forced, and that to me is still something that I will never get my head around, to be honest, ever. What happens to those children is beyond anything. But going back to forgiving him, I don't need to. I needed to forgive myself more than that. I needed to forgive myself for allowing.
That's even more powerful.
Yeah,
that's even more powerful.
Yes. Exactly, it really is. I needed to forgive myself for allowing myself to live with such a man as that. To me, that was, how could I have lived with him? How could I have let that man touch me? How could I have put my son in danger? That's how I felt. Felt like I put my son in danger. Whereas actually, of course I didn't, because I chose him because he was a lovely man. And he was.
I believe you.
Yeah, if you put aside the side of him, because we all have many sides, don't we? We are multifaceted. We have many different people in us, all of us. If you put aside that was a tiny section of him, that awful addiction that he had, that attraction he had to children was a tiny section of him that he tried so hard, I think, to not have. He didn't want to be that way. He really didn't. It wasn't as if he was a monster who wanted to be like that. He didn't want to be that person.
Well, you knew him from all those different sides.
I did.
And I don't know whether you've ever followed Dr. John Demartini, but my husband, Dr. Ian, who is also a chiropractor, and myself went to Melbourne to do his training on the breakthrough experience. And that breakthrough experience meant that you literally had to hold, and because we became like, it was part of the qualification that we did years ago, and we brought it back to Perth and we ran this massive event, and it really turned people inside out, upside down and back the front, because when people were going through the breakthrough, they were having like little mini breakdowns, they were getting aggro, all of their Achilles heel was coming out. And some of them would even want to get up and leave. And we said, don't leave, don't. The one thing you've got to trust us on this is you've got to move through this. You've got to push through to the other side.
The pain.
Yeah, push through the pain, because you are halfway across the line and you're at that level where, you've brought that person who you need to deeply forgive, and you've gone through this process where you've looked at the equilibrium, what the good parts about them and the bad parts. And then wait for it, Rosie, you're not going to like this very much. Then you're going to look for the things in them that are also in you, right?
Yeah.
Now, can you imagine when this woman said, no, I can't forgive? She was in that course and she turned around and she said, because that guy murdered my husband. That's pretty like, that's a big ask for me to say, well, why would you not forgive him? But what if you released yourself?
Yeah.
And as she was breaking it all down, sometimes it's not a literal thing, like, it may not be literal, but, maybe if you've looked at somebody else with hatred, even for a moment, like, when you're a teenager, or maybe in his case, when he was a child, obviously there was something very deeply missing there in his sexuality. But, when we find the mirror of both sides of it and we kind of equalize it, neutralize it, dissolve it, and know that there's all these different sides to everything, that's when it loses its power. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I've done so much self-delving since then. That was for me, that was what made me look at myself, and I mean really look at myself. I thought I'd looked at myself before, I really thought I'd looked at myself before. Didn't have the easiest childhood, and so I thought I'd looked at myself before, and I thought, yeah, I've dealt with all that, and I'm training to be a hypnotherapist now, and then that hit me like a brick, and that was one hell of a wake-up call. I need to look at myself. I really need to look at myself here, and I did, and it was really painful. Lots of it was really, really, really painful. And like you said, you have to sort of look at why you were attracted to that person. Like attracts like, they say, and yeah, it was really painful. And I know that both of us had we had so much in common. We had similar childhoods in a way, similar in a way and very, very dissimilar in another way. But anyway, that was something that really, really woke me up and booted me towards, towards acting and towards living life. And I had to stop being fearful. I was spending my entire life scared of everything and being fearful and not feeling like I was enough and not feeling, I couldn't do anything. I could never achieve anything because I just wasn't good enough and I was never enough. And that was one big boot up the backside that I needed to act. And I did. I acted and I started to do things and I started stepping out of my comfort zone and putting things into place that I never dreamt I could do. And I achieved so much, really surprised myself and just achieved so much. It was amazing, but still I wasn't quite there. I wasn't quite there. And then I had another trauma, which happened last November, and there was an explosion and a fire in my home. And I lost a lot of my hair. So I lost the first inch of my hair, and my face and hands were badly burnt. Yeah, and that was another thing that just pushed me into action and pushed me into knowing myself better and to having these huge realizations about what life's about, and fear, the fear that we hold within us, the fear that, we think, some fear can be a really good thing because it protects you. Well, actually, fear can also imprison you. And that's what it did to me. I spent my whole life really up until not very long ago. I spent my entire life imprisoned by my own fear. And yeah, when you realize that and you let go and you have these things that other people sort of say, oh my God, what an awful thing to happen to you. And I say, it didn't happen to me. It happened for me. It happened for me. And they're like, what? And what? Are you saying that it was a good thing? Yeah, actually, it was a good thing. It was a really good thing because it didn't just, the explosion, yes, it happened right there in front of me, but it also happened in my brain. It was like an explosion in my brain, and it blew my eyes wide open and everything. And suddenly I could see things that I'd never seen before, ever. And I felt things I'd never felt before. I felt braver. I felt, I felt somehow enlightened afterwards.
Wow. Because that's fire, and fire does it, that's very, very significant. It's a bit like ocean and water. And the goddess Ocean, and how fierce that can be. And so I just say what a champion, what an absolute legend, and an amazing woman that you are, because you've not just endured this like 30 years ago or 40 years ago. This has all been recent. So, when something happens to us in our nervous system, as hypnotherapists, we know that it causes this whole, and as you said about the fire, this visual, audible, kinesthetic explosion, right? Literally, that's what happened to you. Did you, what did you do to switch off that trigger and that repetitive trauma?
So initially with the first trauma that I had, I was bad for 2 weeks. I was really bad. I had, unfortunately, I discovered an SD card, which I then put into the computer, and it was the child pornography, and it was severe child pornography. That played exactly where it played on the computer, bottom left. It played in my vision, and I couldn't switch off everywhere I looked for a while. And I'm lucky enough to have some fantastic friends, and a really wonderful friend of mine called Sarah Christie. I called her up and I said, I need to tell you what's happened to me. It's not great, but I need your help. And she helped me, NLP. So we got rid of the visual images, and then we did a lot of tapping, which got me addicted to tapping. It's fantastic. And that helped to process all the emotions that I was feeling. And it was pretty much instant. I think we spent 3 hours that day tapping, 3 hours. But but it processed all of the strong emotions that I couldn't think about him without crying. I couldn't think about, I just felt so repulsive. It processed it all. It was absolutely fantastic. It really was like a magic cure. So that sort of did that. And I've gone off track here. I can't remember what.
No, that was perfect. I love that, because I want to actually expand on that. So, you know, people don't realize it, and a lot of listeners don't know much about the work we do. But what we know, and this is a very, very great example of, you've got to be careful of what you are looking at, what your kids are looking at, what comes up in your mind, what you're hearing, because it leaves an imprint on your mind that will impact the way you behave and
Absolutely.
what you're actually thinking and believing. So when you contacted this lovely lady, Sarah, who practices obviously neuro-linguistic programming, she was able to switch off. And this is something that I know when I'm teaching counselors and psychologists, this modality, they're doing it because this allows people to switch off the trauma.
Yeah.
So they're not replaying that over and over in their mind. So it's not flashing up when they least expect it and impacting the way that they do life. Because, you know, I mean, what we put in here will come out. You know, there's just the way that it is. So, you know, yeah, and I love the fact that, you know, you've taken on board that neuro-linguistic programming to release and dissolve and clear the visual, audible, kinesthetic, you know, power that it was holding on your life until that was kind of taken out and released. And then you're tapping, and the tapping is kind of, you know, yourself, because you're kind of like not running away from a bad situation, but it's, even though this is the situation, I truly love and value myself. And, you know, we're kind of facing it, aren't we? And we're letting ourselves know that it's okay. And so I love that you were able to do that. And I know, you know, I've been very blessed, but I had a trauma myself going back some years ago. It's where I actually found my husband's brother who had passed away. But for me, because it was a shock, it was unexpected. And I was the one who actually went there to take him a sandwich to help him out, because he had a little bit of heartburn and wasn't feeling very well, to find out that he was blue. And that really kind of shocked me, like I was shaking. I realized that I was distracted. And this is what people don't understand. When you've got underlying trauma and you think, oh yeah, I've pushed that aside, or years have gone by, you know, it interrupts your life. It interrupts your success. It interrupts your flow.
It does.
So by actually, you know, allowing yourself to deal with it with the right people, like Rosie, like myself, like Sarah, the lady Rosie's talking about, right? What that actually means is that you are releasing that out of your body, out of your library, so you can do life, you know, limitless. So you're not held back, paralyzed by fear. And I know that I had to get my husband to do a very strong collapse on me. And I knew it was a bit too soon, because you got to grieve and everything as well. So it wasn't that I was trying to short circuit my grief, but it was that I had so much that I had to do, that I knew that my physical body shaking wasn't good for me. So within, and this goes to show how powerful the work we do is, within 15 minutes of my husband conducting that technique and collapsing that trauma, it left my body.
Yes.
It didn't go out of my mind. Like, it didn't cause me to think something ridiculous like that something bad is okay. You have your rationality, but the trigger has gone.
Yeah. And the it causes so much emotion, constant emotion, to be at the forefront, and it relaxes that, and you can then allow that emotion to dissipate, and you don't feel that strength of emotion over that situation again. Because it changes our whole chemical things as well. You said that it, you know, you get trapped in that trauma, don't you? And
Oh,
you said that it stops you, it limits you, and it really does. And you didn't stop the grieving process. You just removed that very initial trauma, and that would have allowed you to grieve properly. If you'd have stayed with that trauma, you probably would have been grieving for a lot longer. A lot longer.
absolutely.
And
100%.
I don't think people realize how much the chemicals change when you experience trauma and when you experience a situation. Your whole chemical makeup, because of the emotions that are felt and are present at the time, the emotions change your whole chemical makeup. And then the problem is, if you feel those emotions day in, day out, and you wake up every morning to the same emotions, your chemicals will remain the same. And then your body becomes addicted to the chemicals. And so if you are grieving and you sink into a depression, if you're angry every day, you wake up, something bad's happened, you're really angry, you wake up every morning with those same chemicals flooding your system, your body will then become quite addicted to those chemicals. And so if you then wake up where you don't feel that anger and you don't feel those emotions, the sadness or the anger, whatever it is you're feeling, if you then wake up in the morning and you don't feel that for one morning and you think, oh, actually, I don't feel too bad today, your body will then crave those chemicals, unfortunately. And your body will say, where's my chemicals? I've had these angry chemicals flooding me for 2-3 weeks. I'm used to that. Where's the angry chemicals? And suddenly you'll find yourself doing something which makes you feel angry, you know, or doing something which makes you feel sad. And people go, well,
Right.
I don't know why I'm caught in this circle. I can't seem to get out of it. You know, every day I wake up, and some mornings I wake up and I actually feel okay, but it's not long before I'm depressed again. And I say, yeah, you need to trick yourself out of those chemicals, you know. And I give people all kinds of weird stuff to do that tricks their body into producing happy chemicals and okay chemicals, so that they can become used to those happy okay chemicals. The brain is just phenomenal, isn't it? It's phenomenal.
It not only is, but what you're saying is just, I love what you're saying, because it has such a big impact on our immune system too. And then people wonder why they come up with all of these diseases, or they've got these pains and they've got these headaches or this exhaustion, because it's all these toxins going on in your body. And when they're gone, oh, what an amazing release. Not
it
just
really is.
Physically, but spiritually.
Yeah.
And so, and as it turns out, Friday Night at Rosie's was born.
Yeah.
So there's something in there that really, that sounds very fun. It sounds like it's really something where people can just let their hair down and all of those things. So what sort of people do you reckon are coming into Friday Night at Rosie's?
So it's pretty much all healers and therapists. It's people who serve. People who serve, and they give all week. And I just want to give back. I just want people to come along and have fun. I want them to let their hair down. It's just going to be fun. It's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be like your favorite TV series, but you get to be involved. It's all about the audience. All about the audience. It's audience participation. It's interactive. So you get to ask the guest speaker questions. You get to be involved as well, you know, and then you go into your breakout rooms and you get to meet people. You get to meet people that you haven't seen for a couple of years. You met them on a course 2 years ago. You really liked them, but you kind of lost touch. And you get to do that every single week. I want people to have so much fun that this is something that they're going to start looking forward to. So every Friday you're going to be, oh, thank God, it's Fridays at Rosie's at 7:30 or 7. It's 7. It's Fridays at Rosie's at 7, and I can just, oh my God, I get myself a cup of tea or a glass of wine, and I can just chill with everyone and learn, because we just love learning, don't we? We're addicted to it. But I don't want people to think of it as it's not another course. You're going to learn so much, but you're going to learn without even knowing you're learning, because I'm going to be speaking to this guest speaker. It's going to be like you and me. We're just going to have a laugh. We're going to chill. We're going to speak about stuff. It's going to be an absolute scream.
But you'll have a little wine.
Ah, there you go. Yes, absolutely. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a scream. And all of those who know me will know that that I've got a wicked sense of humour, and you know, that's probably part of what's kept me going throughout all of this. I've got a wicked sense of humour, so it's going to be an absolute scream.
Love it. And how do people get on board?
Okay, so look out for me on Facebook. Follow me on Facebook, because soon you're all going to find out how you can sign up for it. First show is going to be free. Obviously, I want people to come along, and I don't want people to have to sign up without knowing what they're signing up for. So come along free to the first one, but the numbers are limited. Unfortunately, due to sort of various, obviously, you know, we don't want 400 people there, because how can you be interactive? It's not going to be personal if there are 400 people there. So the numbers are limited. So make sure you get in there early, but find me on Facebook, Rosie Nelson. And then there's going to be a Facebook page coming very shortly. We're not going to do it too soon, because I don't want people to have to wait too long. It's Friday the 30th of September is the first one at 7 o'clock. But keep an eye out, Rosie Nelson, Facebook, and you'll find out soon. All the advertising, all of the promotional stuff will be happening soon. It's going to be really exciting.
Amazing. So, you know, regardless of when you're listening to this, whether you are just in time for the big liftoff, or maybe getting on board with Rosie, you've heard the story, you know the talent, you know, you hear her heart. We'll have your link, and you can just find it, and you can contact Rosie. And I just want to thank you so much. Now, if you had one last thing you'd like to share with the audience, what would it be?
Stop being scared. I spent my whole life scared. You know, I'm 50 in a couple of weeks' time. I'm 50, and I haven't done anything that I wanted to do, really. Yes, I've done bits and pieces, but I haven't made the impact that I could have made. I've had so many opportunities in my life. Didn't do it because I was scared. Just find a way of not being scared anymore. Just find a way. Whatever you do, seek any way you can of not being fearful and not being scared anymore. Because once you lose that fear, you know, you will be able to give to the world so much better. And that's all I want to do. I want to give to people. I want people to be happy, and I don't want to leave this world having not given and not made a difference. And that's what I'm going to do now. I feel that I can do that now. Now I've lost the fear, finally.
You have, and hence why they say fear is like an acronym for false evidence appearing real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, quite often we'll be in it, and yet there's nothing happening. We're just here, we're free. So why not make the most of your life? Yeah. And, you know, I know one of the little things that I say to people, especially with coaches that are feeling that fear of showing up, or having that imposter syndrome, or feeling like they're not good enough, like what you were talking about before. It's like, you know, if you could throw yourself out there and go into the oldest you, maybe in your 90s, who knows, and look back knowing that you are the youngest you'll ever be, you know, what would that person say to you now? Like, what would you be saying to yourself? Would you be holding back, or would you be going, oh man, you know, if I had that body, and if I had that health, and if I had that vitality, and if I had that message, I would just face the fear and break through it, and know that it's oblivious.
Yes. It doesn't. Do you know what? It is so crippling. Fear is crippling, you know. And yet I've got 2 legs, 2 arms. I'm not disabled in any way, but I've been disabled all my life because I've allowed the fear to disable me. It's horrendous, you know. And now that I've managed to break through that, and you know, it's liberating. And you know, yes, of course, I've got a long way to go. But I'm going to do that with all of my friends and all of my acquaintances, and every Friday is going to help me one little stage further. And Fridays at Rosie's, that's also going to help me, and it's going to help loads of other people to step over that fear. Week by week, we can all do it together and become fearless, and become people who can really serve and help and just encourage and embrace. And I'm really looking forward to it. And
Yeah,
it's
and you share that mission, sister, like share that mission about what you've been through, the explosion, and what you went through in that relationship, because that's the kind of stuff. I mean, it may be a different kind of style of whatever happened for another person. It might be a different way, but the fact is we've all been through hurt, we've all been through pain. Exactly. And when we know that we can face anything, and when you're in the right people, when you're in the right crowd and you're with the right people, what better way to do it? So I just want to thank you so very, very much. And, I would just love you to wait backstage for me. And thank you for your time. This has been a really powerful podcast to have done with you. And I feel very privileged that you have been so open, because I know that there's people out there that are just going to go, wow. And that might get somebody to step up too.
I hope so.
And say, absolutely. So thank you.
So. Thank you, Terry. Thank you.
You're welcome. Wow, wow, wow. What an amazing woman. It just goes to show this is what you can do too. You can allow your story to become your glory. If you have a special story, if you've got a zone of genius that you want to share, or maybe you want to tap into what it is that's going to give you that next up level, go to my website, terrymessenger.com. You can contact me. We can discuss either for you to come on, share your story, or maybe you would like to dig deep and find your gold mine underneath, who knows, maybe even years and years of pain. Turn your pain into your power. Make your story, just like Rosie, your glory. And until next time, that's over and out from me, Terry Messenger. See you soon.